Hello, everyone. Welcome to Untold Story, the channel where we unearth the most intriguing conflicts in history. Today we head to 16th century France to explore a dramatic and crucial confrontation, the War of the Three Henrys, a civil war that put France's fate at stake and pitted three powerful leaders against each other, plunging the country into unprecedented religious and political chaos. The War of the Three Henrys was the climax of the wars of religion in France, a series of conflicts that, for more than 3 decades, pitted Catholics and Protestants, Huguenots, against each other, devastating entire cities and regions. Religious tensions peaked with 3 key figures at the helm: Henry III of France, the Catholic king, who was trying to preserve his throne and unify a divided country; Henry of Guise, leader of the Ultra-Catholic League, a faction that demanded a complete purge of Protestants and wished to control political power; and finally, Henry of Navarre, leader of the Huguenots and Protestant heir to the throne, who would later become Henry IV, the king who would bring stability to France. The conflict was ignited for multiple reasons. Henry III, cornered by the growing demands of the Catholic League and fearful of losing his authority, tried to maintain balance in a France torn apart by religious intolerance. The wars of religion had left deep scars on French society, and murders, massacres, and reprisals had become part of everyday life. Tensions reached a fever pitch in 1588, when Henry III, in a desperate move, ordered the assassination of Henry of Guise during a meeting at the Château de Blois. This act, far from resolving the conflict, unleashed chaos. The Catholic League rose up in open rebellion against the king, accusing him of being a traitor to the Catholic faith. Meanwhile, Henry of Navarre, leader of the Huguenots, took advantage of the chaos to advance his own ambitions. His army, made up of Huguenots and Protestant mercenaries, began to make strategic incursions across the country, consolidating his power in key regions. Navarre, shrewd and with a clear vision of becoming the future king, faced not only ultra-conservative Catholics, but also the distrust of many French people who did not look favorably on a Protestant monarch. Against this backdrop, decisive battles took place, such as the Battle of Jarnac in 1569 and the Battle of Montcontour in 1569, which set the tone for the fierce rivalry between the two sides. The year 1589 marked a turning point in this bloody conflict. Henry III, weakened by rebellions and increasingly politically isolated, was assassinated by a religious fanatic. Before dying, without leaving a direct heir, he made a crucial decision. He recognized Henry of Navarre as his successor to the throne of France. This appointment was not well received by radical Catholics, who were reluctant to accept a Protestant as king. From this moment on, the situation became even more complicated, with the Catholic League willing to do everything possible to prevent Navarre from assuming the throne. The war did not end with the death of Henry III. Henry of Navarre, now King of France, had to face several years of fierce resistance from the Catholic League. Battles followed one another swiftly and viciously, and cities became fortresses. The French economy was paralyzed due to constant fighting, while the civilian population suffered in the midst of the war. The Battle of Ivry in 1590 was one of the most decisive confrontations, where Henry of Navarre demonstrated his military skill, defeating the forces of the Catholic League and consolidating his position as the legitimate leader. However, Henry of Navarre did not only fight on the battlefield. His negotiating skills and political astuteness were equally important. He realized that he had to find a peaceful solution to unite a divided country. In 1593, Henry made a pragmatic and historically famous decision. He converted to Catholicism, uttering the famous phrase, "Paris is well worth a mass." This act of conversion was a shrewd political move that allowed him to win the support of the majority of French Catholics and, with it, secure the throne as Henry IV. This change of faith not only provided him with legitimacy, but also symbolized his commitment to national unity. Under the reign of Henry IV, France experienced relative peace and stability after decades of civil war. One of his first and most important measures was the promulgation of the Edict of Nantes in 1598, which guaranteed freedom of worship for the Huguenots, laying the foundations for peaceful coexistence between Catholics and Protestants. This edict was a crucial step towards reconciliation and allowed France to begin to rebuild after years of devastation. Henry IV understood that only through tolerance and dialogue could he heal the wounds of the conflict, and his policy of reconciliation was well received in much of the country. The War of the Three Henrys not only marked the end of the wars of religion in France, but also transformed the country's political and religious landscape. This conflict served as a lesson about the consequences of religious intolerance and the importance of seeking an understanding between different beliefs. Henry IV, with his pragmatic approach and his ability to manage relations between different sectors of society, managed to establish a more cohesive and less divided kingdom. His reign was associated with a cultural and economic renaissance where the arts and sciences flourished, laying the foundations for the future of modern France. The war left a lasting legacy in France's collective memory. The struggle for power and faith became recurring themes in French history, ushering in an era where the search for peace and unity would prevail, though not without challenges. The lessons of this war would resonate through the centuries, reminding future generations of the dangers of division and the need for reconciliation. The figure of Henry IV became a symbol of tolerance and commitment, and his reign is remembered as a period of cultural and economic flourishing in France. Finally, the War of the Three Henrys and its aftermath invite us to reflect on the nature of conflict, power, and religion. The history of France in this period reminds us that violence and intolerance can lead to destruction, but also that reconciliation and the search for understanding are possible, albeit complex. As we look back, it is critical to learn from these historic events to build a more peaceful and tolerant future. Thank you for joining us in this analysis of the War of the Three Henrys. If you liked the episode, subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell for more fascinating stories in Untold Story.
See you next time.